Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What happens when you stop chasing someone who took you for granted? What happens when your love turns into distance and your attention turns into silence? He feels it, and he never forgets it. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Eddie, when you stop reaching out to a man, whether it's through text, calls, or attention, you send a message that no amount of talking could ever convey. It's a powerful move, and it sparks a series of internal reactions in him that can surprise you. Let's uncover what really happens when you go silent, emotionally, psychologically, and even spiritually. Because one thing is certain, your silence will not be ignored. The moment you stop reaching out to a man, when your name stops lighting up his phone, when your good morning texts vanish, when your comforting voice is no longer a part of his day, he feels it. Even if he doesn't show it, even if he pretends not to care, he notices. And he feels the shift immediately. It's not just your words or your attention that go missing, it's the energy you use to bring. That emotional warmth, that presence, that softness in your voice that made his day lighter, even if he never said it out loud. Suddenly, the emotional ecosystem he's used to living in is disrupted. It's like walking into a room that used to be filled with sunlight and now feels cold and dim. Something's missing, and that something is you. Men are often conditioned not to admit how much they rely on connection, but deep down, most crave consistency. They get used to you being there even in the background. Your presence becomes a part of their emotional routine. The daily check-ins, the small jokes, the way you remembered the little details. When that stops, it hits him in the quiet spaces. He might not react right away. He might not message you the next day or call to ask why you've gone quiet. But make no mistake, in those silent moments, when he's driving, when he's lying awake at night, when he picks up his phone and sees no new messages from you, he feels it. Your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. And it forces him to ask himself a question he may have been avoiding. Why does this feel so empty without her? This is the first ripple in a much deeper emotional wave. And once it starts, it doesn't stop there. When you stop contacting a man, one of the first and strongest internal reactions he experiences, whether he admits it or not, is a direct hit to his ego. Not his heart. His ego. Not his soul, his ego. You see, for many men, especially those who are used to being pursued, admired, or emotionally prioritized, your attention becomes a form of unspoken validation. Even if the relationship was undefined, complicated, or imbalanced, your consistent communication told him something. You still want me. You still care. You're still emotionally invested. And whether consciously or subconsciously, he relied on that. Well, so the moment you stop texting him, the moment you stop checking in, the moment you don't reply to his stories or laugh at his jokes or ask how his day was, he doesn't just feel ignored, he feels dethroned. Because for a man whose sense of worth is tightly wrapped around the idea of being desired, your silence becomes a threat. It challenges his sense of control. It confronts the part of him that thought you'd always be available, always emotionally accessible, always just a message away. He may begin to feel confused, even angry. Not necessarily because he misses you deeply at first, but because his image of himself starts to crack. How could she just stop like that? It's no longer about you walking away. It's about him not being the one who decided how this ends. The ego hates rejection, even in its softest, quietest form. And silence is a powerful rejection, because it offers no explanation, no closure, no chance for debate or persuasion. You didn't argue. You didn't cry. You didn't beg. You simply withdrew. And that kind of exit, it bruises the ego more than any confrontation ever could. He may try to act unbothered. He might post like he's thriving or make subtle moves to appear unaffected. But inside, there's an agitation, like something's out of place. And it is. The attention that once fed his sense of superiority is gone. And it leaves a space too loud to ignore. Now he starts to wonder, was I not enough? Or worse, was she finally done with me? And those questions, they don't just poke his ego, they pierce it. After the initial shock of your silence, once the ego begins to crack and the noise of pride starts to fade, a quieter, more powerful process begins inside him, self-questioning. It doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly. At first, he might brush it off with excuses. Oh, she's just busy. If she's playing games, she'll reach out again soon. But as the silence lingers, those shallow justifications stop holding weight. Days pass. You remain quiet. You don't break. And that's when something shifts. The noise in his head turns inward, and he starts to ask the one thing his ego never wanted to hear. Did I mess this up? For a man who's not used to accountability, this can be uncomfortable, even foreign. He may replay your last few conversations in his mind, the things he said, the way he dismissed your efforts, the times he responded late or not at all, the moments he thought you'd always be there, so he didn't bother showing up. Now he's wondering, was I too distant? Did I take her for granted? Was I giving enough? Was she already hurting and I didn't see it? And most of all, why didn't I notice her slipping away? This phase is dangerous for him, not because of pain, but because of reflection. Because when a man starts to truly reflect, he either grows or he spirals. He might feel guilt creep in, especially if deep down he knows he didn't treat you the way you deserved. That guilt doesn't come with dramatic breakdowns or apologies right away. It shows up as restlessness, as regret. As long pauses while he stares at his phone, debating whether to say something, but not knowing what to say. And in the silence, he starts to see something he didn't before. You were trying. You were patient. Well, you gave him access to parts of you that not everyone gets. Your thoughts, your care, your time, your vulnerability. And what did he do with it? Now he doesn't know. So he questions, and questions, and questions again. Self-doubt begins to replace the confidence he once carried so casually. The version of himself he thought you admired now feels incomplete, maybe even undeserving. That's the power of silence. It doesn't yell, it doesn't accuse, and it doesn't chase. It forces him to sit with himself, and that can be louder than any words you could have ever spoken. After the silence has settled in, after the confusion, the bruised ego, and the quiet storm of self-doubt, he doesn't always reach out. He doesn't always message. He doesn't always call or make his presence obvious. But that doesn't mean he's gone. In fact, he's more present than ever. Just not in the way you can see. He's watching quietly, closely, carefully. Men, especially the ones who are used to attention without accountability, rarely let go of their access completely. Even when they lose communication, they often try to keep a digital door open. So while you're focused on moving forward, healing, or simply protecting your peace, he's in the background. He's in the background, observing. He might not comment, but he's there, watching your stories, checking your last scene, reading between the lines of your captions. Zooming into your photos, looking for clues. Are you happy without him? Are you posting for someone else? Is that smile real, or is it a message? He watches because your silence created a mystery, and that mystery haunts him. You were once so open, so expressive. You shared your thoughts, your time, your feelings so freely. He always knew what you were thinking. But now, you've gone quiet, detached, and that unsettles him. Because he doesn't know what version of you is being born in his absence. The more he watches, the more questions arise. Is she over me? And has someone else stepped in? Was I really that easy to forget? He scrolls through your pictures more slowly now, paying attention to details he never noticed before. The glow in your skin, the strength in your silence, the confidence in your eyes. You're not begging. You're not broken. You're not chasing. He might even start seeing you through a lens he never used when you were still reachable. Back then, he may have overlooked your beauty, your grace, your energy, because he felt entitled to it. But now that you've pulled it back, he studies it, craves it, misses it, but from a distance, because pride won't let him step forward. And so, he remains there, in the background of your life, watching silently, hoping your silence doesn't last forever, but afraid of what it means if it does. When the silence stretches on and the weight of your absence begins to press on his mind, something else begins to shift within him, his memory. You see, time has a strange way of reshaping reality. When a man no longer has access to you, when the calls stop coming and the messages no longer light up his phone, he starts to rewind through the past. But not as it happened. He rewinds it as he wants to remember it. At first, he might think of the obvious things, your smile, the sound of your laugh echoing through a quiet room, the way your energy changed the atmosphere when you walked in. But soon, those memories go deeper. He starts to romanticize even the simplest moments. That one night you stayed up talking about nothing. The way you'd look at him when he was stressed and didn't say a word, just sat there so he wouldn't feel alone. How you always remembered the little things he liked, even when he never said thank you. That time you made him feel seen, not for who he pretended to be, but for who he really was. Ooh, he really was. In silence, every small memory becomes louder. Every soft moment becomes sacred. Even the way you said his name feels different now in his mind. More valuable, more tender, more rare. He replays old texts, scrolls through old photos, wonders what you meant by that message he brushed off months ago. And he starts to see it all differently. Not because the past changed, but because he finally has the quiet to appreciate it. Back then, he took those moments for granted. He thought they'd last forever. He assumed you'd always be there, patient, forgiving, available. But now those memories feel like treasures he didn't know he was holding. And the mind is clever when it feels loss. It doesn't just remember what was. It creates idealized versions of it. He forgets the moments he made you wait. He forgets the dismissiveness, the distance, the missed chances. What he remembers now is your warmth, your consistency, your care. And that romanticized past becomes something he compares every new interaction to. Because even if someone new comes along, they weren't there for those memories. They weren't in the car singing with you. They weren't there when you both laughed until you couldn't breathe. They didn't see the raw, unfiltered parts of him that you held without judgment. And slowly, without realizing it, he starts to long not just for you, but for the version of life he had when you were in it. That nostalgia, it doesn't let go easily, because it's not just a memory, it's a reminder of everything he never fully appreciated until now. As time passes and your silence holds strong, a new thought begins to creep into his mind, one that unsettles him far more than he expected. It's quiet at first, just a whisper, but then it grows louder and louder, until it becomes a voice he can't ignore. She's moving on, without me. At first, he might try to deny it. He'll tell himself you're just taking space, or maybe trying to get his attention. But deep down, beneath the pride and under the layers of his defensiveness, a seed of doubt starts to grow. And with every day you remain silent, without a message, without a like, without a single reaction to his presence, that seed begins to bloom into fear. He starts to picture it. You laughing with someone else, someone new texting you good morning, someone who listens more, shows up faster, loves you better. someone who sees your worth and never plays with your time or emotions. And suddenly, the silence that once made him feel in control now makes him feel completely powerless. He doesn't know where he stands anymore. He no longer gets updates on your day. He doesn't know who you're with. He can't feel your emotional temperature. And the less he knows, the more his imagination runs wild. He might start scanning your posts for clues. A new outfit, quote about healing, a caption that sounds a little too content, a smile that doesn't look like it needs him anymore. And while you may just be finding your peace again, in his mind, it starts to look like you're replacing what he once thought was irreplaceable, him. That thought hits hard. Because if he believed you'd never move on, your silence would be nothing more than a waiting game. But now he's not so sure. And that uncertainty stings more than rejection ever could. It challenges his ego, yes. But more than that, it forces him to confront the consequences of his inaction. He starts to wonder, what if I waited too long? What if I pushed her so far she finally let go? What if she found someone who treats her the way I should have? And while he may not say these words aloud, they echo inside him. Every time he checks your profile. Every time he doesn't see your name pop up. Every time he sees you glowing from a distance, and he's no longer a part of that light. Because in his mind, the silence no longer means space. It means a door might be closing, and someone else might already be walking through it. When your silence becomes too loud to ignore, when your absence starts to weigh on his chest like something he can't name or shake off, many men don't sit with that discomfort. They run from it. Not forward, not into growth, but into distraction. Instead of facing what he lost or what he failed to protect, he tries to fill the void. Not by reaching in, but by reaching out. He might suddenly become more active, more available. You'll notice the shift if you're paying attention, not in words, but in behavior. More posts, more stories, more outings with friends, a sudden spark of happiness that feels too performative to be real, and sometimes someone new appears. Not someone better, not someone deeper, just new. He starts talking to other women. Not because he's over you, but because he's trying to convince himself that you were replaceable, that what he lost wasn't as rare as it now feels, that someone else can give him what you did, your attention, your care, your energy, your presence. But deep down, even as he entertains this illusion, there's a hollowness he can't deny, because he's not seeking connection, he's seeking distraction. He's not trying to build something real. He's trying to escape the weight of your silence. He may even overcompensate, trying to fast-track intimacy with someone new. He'll rush conversations, overshare, or jump into situations that mimic what he had with you. But no matter how far he throws himself into it, something always feels off. Because it's not you, the way you understood him, the way you brought him peace without demanding it. The way your presence felt like home, even on days when everything around him was falling apart. He can try to replicate that, but he can't recreate you. And that truth becomes a quiet ache he carries with him. One he may not admit. One he tries to bury under surface-level connections and short-lived attention, because that's all it is. Temporary attention, not depth, not soul. Not what you gave without asking for much in return. He might tell himself he's fine, that he's moving on, that he didn't feel the loss as much as you think. But the truth is, when a man tries to replace you too quickly, it's often because he knows exactly what he lost. And the fear of facing that truth alone is something he's not ready for. So instead of sitting with the silence, instead of growing through the discomfort, he distracts himself with noise. And sometimes, in the middle of that noise, your memory becomes even louder. As the silence lingers longer than he expected, as the distractions lose their edge, as the replacements feel empty, something begins to shift inside him. It's no longer just pride, no longer just ego. Now it becomes something more unsettling. Confusion mixed with curiosity. He can't read you anymore, and that's what gets to him. Because once upon a time, he had a grasp on your emotions. He could predict your reactions. He could count on your presence. But now you're a mystery. That woman who used to overthink every word, who would double text when you sensed distance, who would explain herself just to keep peace. She's silent. Still. Composed. And that scares him. Because now he doesn't know what you're thinking. He doesn't know if you're hurting, healing, or completely done. He scrolls through your posts, but they give him nothing. He tries to decode your captions, the tone in your photos, even your choice of words, but he finds no clues. And suddenly the control he thought he had is gone. Now he's the one overthinking. He's the one waiting. He's the one wondering what's going on behind your silence. Are you mad at him? Are you finally moving on? Are you trying to teach him a lesson? Or are you actually done this time? He replays the last conversation, trying to find a sign. Maybe there was something in your tone. Maybe you hinted at leaving and he didn't take you seriously. Maybe your silence isn't just distance, it's closure. And that thought haunts him. Because confusion is uncomfortable, especially for someone who once felt certain of their place in your life. Now he doesn't know if he's blocked emotionally or forgotten, ignored or replaced, missed or erased. And that curiosity, it starts to drive him. He wonders who you're texting now. He wonders if you're telling someone new the things you used to tell him. He wonders if someone else now gets to experience the softness, the loyalty, the love that once belonged to him. He wonders if he ever really knew how much you were capable of walking away. But more than anything, he wonders what's coming next. Because when a woman who once gave everything goes quiet, not with anger, not with drama, but with peace, a man who never expected it becomes both curious and completely unprepared. So, there comes a moment in the silence, not right away, not in the first few days, sometimes not even in the first few weeks, when all the noise in his head settles down. And in that stillness, something begins to take shape. A feeling he tried to ignore, a truth he tried to deny. Truth he tried to deny. He realizes what he lost. Not in theory, not just the idea of you, but you. All of you. He doesn't just remember your presence. He begins to understand its value. That you weren't just texting to get his attention. You were showing care. That you didn't just want time, you were craving connection. That your emotional investment wasn't clinginess. It was love, poured out in ways he never fully appreciated. He starts to see things clearly now, from a distance he never expected to have. The conversations he rushed through, the efforts he brushed off. The moments he left you hanging, assuming you'd wait. The days you went unheard, unseen, and still chose to show up anyway. Now that you're no longer reaching out, now that you're not reminding him of your presence, now that you're not trying to fix things, carry the weight, or hold the connection together, he feels the full cost of your absence. And it's not just the loneliness, it's not just the silence. It's the gut-punching realization that he had something rare, and he treated it like it was replaceable. He starts to reflect not just on who you were to him, but on who he was when you were in his life. More stable, more supported. More supported, less alone, even on his worst days. Because without even trying, you created a space for him to rest, to express, to feel safe. And now that space is gone. And here's the part that hurts him the most. You didn't leave with a storm. You didn't throw everything in his face. You didn't cause a scene. You just stopped. And that quiet departure says everything. Now in his solitude, he begins to realize you were his peace. You were his person. You were the one who stayed long after you had reasons to leave. And when you finally did walk away, you did it with dignity. That's when it hits him hardest. Not when you were arguing, not when you were crying, but when you went silent. Because that's when he knew he really lost you. And there's no rewind button, no quick fix. No distraction deep enough to drown out the memory of someone who gave with a full heart and walked away when it was no longer being valued. After all the silence, after the ego, the confusion, the distractions, and the realization of what he's lost, there's a strong chance he'll try to come back. But not always in the way you'd expect. Not with a grand apology. Not with emotional clarity. And definitely not with the depth the situation deserves. Because when a man starts to feel your absence in full, he enters a state of quiet desperation. One he doesn't always know how to process. So instead of saying, "I miss you," or "I realized I messed up," he reaches out in small, calculated ways. Hey, how have you been? A message at midnight, a like on a 6-day-old photo, something subtle, non-committal, a digital tap on the shoulder just to see if you'll turn around. Why? Because reaching out directly would mean being vulnerable. Vulnerable. It would mean taking accountability. And for many men, especially the ones who haven't done the internal work, that level of emotional honesty is terrifying. So instead, he plays it safe. He sends signals instead of sentences, breadcrumbs instead of commitment. He's testing the water. Trying to see if you'll respond. Trying to figure out if the door is still slightly open, or if it's already shut for good. What's happening beneath the surface is more complex than the casual messages he sends. He's battling within himself. His pride says, don't reach out. She should be the one to break. His fear whispers, what if she's already gone? And his heart, whether he listens to it or not, is quietly telling him, you let something beautiful slip away, and now you want it back. But he doesn't know how, because he never learned how to repair what he broke. What he broke. He only knew how to enjoy what you gave. So his attempt to reconnect may come clumsy, late, or even frustratingly vague. He might reach out without really saying anything. He might open the conversation, but still avoid the truth. He might even act like nothing happened, hoping you'll just slide back in like before. Because some men don't want to face what they've lost. They just want to feel what they had again. They want the comfort, the attention, the emotional security, without addressing the pain they caused or the silence that forced them to feel it. And so, when he finally makes that move, however subtle, however uncertain, what he's really asking is, are you still there? Or do I still matter? Can I still access the love I took for granted? He may not say it. He may not even fully understand it himself. But beneath every hesitant message, every delayed reaction, every half-hearted attempt to reconnect, is a man who now knows what you were worth, and doesn't know if it's too late to reclaim it. Not every man will grow from your silence, but the ones who are emotionally mature, or at least on the path to becoming self-aware, might begin a transformation they never expected. Because silence, real silence, the kind that comes from dignity, not drama, forces reflection. It becomes a mirror. And some men, when left alone with themselves long enough, begin to truly look in that mirror, not to defend, not to deflect, but to understand. And that's where growth begins. If he's mature enough, your silence doesn't just frustrate him, it confronts him. It strips away the noise, the excuses, the distractions, and forces him to sit with the raw truth of who he was while you were present in his life. He begins to examine the way he responded to your vulnerability, how he took your efforts for granted, how he prioritized his comfort over your emotional needs, how often he confused your patience for permanence. And this time, he doesn't just feel regret, he begins to feel responsibility. That's the shift. Not I miss her, but I failed her. Jua, not I want her back, but I need to become better, whether she comes back or not. Because in your silence, he sees what his words never fix. In your absence, he learns what his presence lacked. And in the space you left behind, he finally has to admit, he wasn't showing up as the man you needed. And if he's wise enough, if he has the emotional capacity to go deeper, he begins to ask the kind of questions that mark real growth. Why did I avoid vulnerability? Why was I emotionally unavailable when she was so open with me? What wounds in me caused me to take her love for granted? How do I show up better, not just for her, but for myself and anyone I care about? This isn't easy. Growth never is. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. It requires unlearning years of toxic conditioning and emotional laziness. But if he's truly evolving, he won't be looking to change just to win you back. He'll begin to realize that he needs to change because the version of himself that lost you was never ready for you in the first place. He may start reading more, journaling, going to therapy, reconnecting with parts of himself he neglected for years. Not to impress anyone, but to rebuild himself from the inside out. Because what your silence gave him, if he's mature enough to recognize it, was an opportunity. Not for a second chance with you necessarily, but a first chance at being the man he should have always been. Once a man begins to feel the weight of your silence, after the regret, the confusion, and even the beginnings of growth, something very subtle and calculated often happens next. He starts to test your boundaries, not always with harmful intent. Sometimes it's unconscious. Other times, it's strategic. But either way, it's a moment of truth, a test to see if your silence is real or just temporary. He may not come back with full apologies or direct accountability. Instead, he tries to slide back in through small cracks, a reaction to your story, a random hey at 11:43 p.m., a comment under your photo that says nothing profound, just enough to remind you he's still watching, still there, still hoping to be acknowledged. And if you respond, warmly, quickly, or emotionally, he takes it as a sign, a signal that he still has access. A confirmation that despite your silence, despite your distance, he can still reach you when he wants. That's what the test is about. Not reconciliation, not closure, but control. Because your silence interrupted a pattern, one where he was centered, where your energy revolved around him, where he knew you would always be available. Now that you've stepped out of that orbit, he needs to know, are you really done, or are you just playing strong? Is your peace permanent, or is it conditional? So he pokes, he teases the boundary, he throws out breadcrumbs to see if you'll pick them up. And if you do, even if it's just a simple reply, it tells him that the door isn't fully closed. But here's what's happening beneath the surface. When he tests your boundaries, he's not just testing your silence, he's testing your evolution. He wants to know if the version of you that's now protecting her peace is real or just reacting. He's trying to see if he still has power. When it's not necessarily because he wants to hurt you, but because he's not used to losing access to something he didn't think he'd ever lose. And that access, it was never just about physical presence. It was about emotional availability, your forgiveness, your softness, your willingness to respond even when he gave you the bare minimum. So now when you say nothing, when you stay grounded, when you don't entertain the bait, he notices and he feels it. Because every test he sends your way is a question. Can I still interrupt her healing? Can I still distract her from her boundaries? Can I still get the version of her that loved me at her own expense? He may disguise these tests as casual check-ins. He may act like he's just being friendly. But beneath it all is a quiet desperation. A need to know whether the woman who once put him first has finally started putting herself first instead. And when your boundary holds strong, when your silence is matched by stillness and your peace cannot be provoked, that test becomes his answer. At a certain point, after all the reflection, confusion, testing, and internal battles, a man reaches a quiet but powerful crossroads. He either evolves or he exits. And this moment isn't loud. It doesn't always come with a dramatic goodbye or a bold declaration of change. It happens in silence, the same silence you created, because silence has a way of exposing truth, not just about how someone feels about you, but about who they really are. By now, he has felt the weight of your absence. He's been forced to sit with the memories, the consequences, the discomfort of not having access to you. And with all of that swirling in his mind and sitting heavy on his chest, he has only two choices: step up or step out. Or step out. If he chooses to evolve, it won't be because he misses your presence. It will be because he finally understands your worth. He sees now what he couldn't see before, that your love was not weakness, it was strength. That your emotional labor wasn't a given, it was a gift. That your patience was not endless, it had limits, and he found them. And in that realization, if he's capable of growth, something begins to shift. He stops making excuses. He begins to take responsibility, not just for losing you, but for how he's shown up in every relationship. He reflects not just on you, but on himself. And more importantly, he begins the slow, uncomfortable process of becoming better. Not to win you back, but because losing you forced him to see the gaps in who he is. But if he's not ready to evolve, if maturity, vulnerability, and accountability are still too heavy for him to carry, then he chooses the easier road. He exits. Maybe not physically. Maybe he still lingers in your digital space. Maybe he watches your stories or checks your profile now and then. But emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, he lets go. Not because he's fully healed, not because he's made peace with losing you, but because facing your silence forced him into a mirror he wasn't ready to stand in front of. And some people would rather walk away from the mirror than change the reflection. He may rationalize it. He may tell himself you have changed. He may even convince himself that you're too cold now, too distant, too guarded. But deep down, he knows. He met a version of you that he could no longer manipulate, delay, or distract. And when faced with a woman who no longer accepts less than she deserves, a man must make a decision that defines everything. Grow into the man she once believed he could be, or quietly disappear from the life she's now rebuilding without him. After all the emotions have calmed, after the noise has settled, and after every attempt to reconnect or test your boundaries has failed or faded, he enters a stage most people don't talk about, but almost always happens. He watches you in silence, from a distance, without a word. And this silence isn't the same as yours. Your silence was a boundary. His silence is a wound, because now he's not sure how to come back. He's not sure if he even has the right to. The damage is done. The story has changed. And you're evolving visibly, beautifully, confidently. He sees you smiling again, but not the smile he used to know, the one that looked for his approval. Now, it's different. It's free. It's self-made. He notices. He sees your glow return. Not because someone else lit it up, but because you learned to light it yourself in his absence. He notices. He hears about your success, your new project, your growth, your peace. And even if he doesn't comment, even if he doesn't reach out, even if he acts like he's moved on, he knows. He sees. And it does something to him. But the silence you once used to heal now becomes a mirror he can't escape. It reflects everything he chose not to be when he had the chance. Every text he ignored, every emotional wall he refused to break down, every effort you gave while he stayed still. And now, he watches, unable to reverse what your distance has revealed. But here's the thing. He won't always watch in jealousy. Sometimes he watches in awe, sometimes in disbelief, and other times in quiet grief, grieving the version of you he never truly met because he was too focused on his ego to see your soul. He may sit with friends and pretend it's nothing. He may joke, say, hey, she's doing her thing, but in private, when he scrolls through those photos, when he reads those captions, when he sees your glow up that came without him, he feels it. Not just the loss, but the reality that you're no longer watching him back. And that's what truly breaks something inside of him. Not that you're gone, but that you're gone and peaceful, gone and better, gone and quiet. Because silence, when it comes from a place of healing, echoes louder than any words he ever said. And so, he stays on the sidelines, watching, lurking, wondering. He watches your life move forward while his remains paused in the space you once filled. He watches your growth with the eyes of someone who knows. Deep down, he had his chance. But now, he watches in silence. So if you're wondering what happens when you stop contacting a man, he notices. He feels it. He's affected by it more than he'll ever admit. Some will panic. Some will play games. Some will watch quietly from the shadows, hoping for a crack in your strength. And some just might begin to grow. But no matter how he responds, always remember this. Your silence is not about punishing him. It's about protecting you. It's not about making him miss you. It's about making space for you to remember who you are without the noise, without the waiting, without the compromise. Because when a woman finally chooses her peace over her patterns, when she stops reaching, stops chasing, and stops begging to be understood, she doesn't lose him, she finds herself. And that is the most powerful shift he will ever witness from the outside.